When guitarist Poncho Sampedro hit the road for the first time as a member of Neil Young and Crazy Horse in November 1975, one of his first gigs took place at the Catalyst in Santa Cruz. The nightclub is a short drive from Young's Broken Arrow Ranch and it holds just about 800 people, making it a perfect spot for the group to try out new material in front of a friendly, hometown crowd, and they returned again in 1976, 1984, 1990, 1996, and 1990. Details of the 70s Catalyst gigs have been largely lost to time, while the later ones have only been heard by a shoddy audience. But a 6-camera team along with a professional audio crew captured the November 13, 1990 show from the Ragged Glory period. It was released a week ago on CD and DVD as Way Down in the Rust Bucket. Related stories. Way Down in the Rust Bucket is the sound of Neil Young and Crazy Horse getting reinvigorated for the 90s. Neil Young's Archives, Volume 2 is a stunning look back at his prolific peak. Related stories. Tom Petty's 50 Greatest Songs, the 10 Most Bizarre Country Christmas Songs. Way Down in the Rust Bucket showcases a reconvened band that sounds newly motivated after increasingly sluggish and creaky shows in the 80s, wrote Rolling Stone's David Brown in a review. They're not yet the smooth galloping machine they would become on the full-blown tour. What we're hearing is the musicians feeling their way, for only the second time on stage, through the new material from the just-out Ragged Glory. Sampedro retired from Crazy Horse following the 2014 leg of the group's Alchemy tour and has kept a low profile since then, but he called us from his home on the Big Island of Hawaii to look back at the Rust Bucket era and explain why he stepped away from the band after to put this Rust Bucket period in context, let's go back to the 1987 Crazy Horse Life Tour. Neil talked about that period recently on his website as a weird time when tickets weren't really selling in some European markets and some shows even got cancelled. That's when we filmed the documentary, Muddy Track. We were incorporating some new stuff, more electronic kind of stuff. MIDI technology was available, and we had these different rigs on the stage we never had before. It was all kind of new. I didn't know we weren't selling tickets. I know we played in a couple of tents, but they were really fun. If you really ask me, I thought the band was pretty healthy then. Producer David Briggs was with us and we had a good light to guide us. It was coming out of kind of a dark period. We didn't really run out of it. We kind of crawled. Yeah. The Blue Notes This Notes for You era started at the end of 1987. That band started with all three of you from Crazy Horse playing. After a short bit, you were the last one standing. Well, first Billy Talbot went missing in action and then Ralph Molina. Ben Keith was playing with us then as part of Crazy Horse. I remember him coming to my room and being like, hey, it's only me and you, Poncho. We better step it up or we're going to be gone. Laughs. That led to the time where you played on Freedom with Neil with 1989, and Ralph Molina and Billy Talbot made a Crazy Horse album called Left for Dead, clearly implying there were some hurt feelings. Well, I'd been left for dead myself at times. Laughs. It's just one of Neil's. You can't take it too personally. You can't. Look at all the work we did, but you're skipping over some things. There were the Blue Notes and then we transitioned into the Lost Dogs, and then Neil did a solo acoustic tour where Ben, Keith, and I traveled with him and we played in the middle of the show. And then Neil and I went to Europe where he played an acoustic show and I played in the middle of it. Then we did Saturday Night Live without drummer Chad Cromwell and bassist Rick Roses. Rick was super pissed about that. And we did it with Charlie Drayton and Steve. SNL gave us a week at the studio to rehearse. All we did was record. Neil recently wrote that he wants to release those recordings as an album. Yeah. That's where Fuckin' Up was first recorded. It was with Steve. It was fun. Steve was playing my guitar and I love to play drums. My son was drumming at that time, so we always had a drum set at home. I sat down behind his drums and he had this line figured out for Fuckin' Up. I started playing the drums and Neil came in with his guitar and was like, okay, everyone on their instrument. Steve said, let's try it like this. And so I played drums on Fuckin' Up. And then Neil said, let's get back to our instruments. Steve walked past me, lowered his sunglasses and was like, you're doing pretty good. Just lay off the toms a little. Laughs. We did another take, and I tell you, that's one of the joys. I played drums on Steve Jordan's set with Neil and Charlie and Steve. Wow. I always say to Neil, do you have a copy? I just want to hear it for myself. How did Crazy Horse reassemble after that? We went through all those periods and then we finally got back together with Billy and Ralph. I remember Neil and I talking about it and it seemed all good. We went in the studio to do this record, Ragged Glory, and we played about 2 days and then Briggs showed up with engineer John Hanlon. That's where the term spook the horse came from. John Hanlon was a new guy and we didn't know him. He started running around behind our amps and looking at everything and checking out the front of the amps where the mics were placed and looking at this and that, and looking at the room. He was just everywhere and I ended up calling him the Fly because he was floating around. The next day, we went to play the songs and we just couldn't. Things we started the day before just fell apart. That's when Briggs said, "Well, you can't spook the horse. The sound of Ragged Glory is very different than live. It's stripped down and you don't hear that 80s production. It's more how you guys sounded in the 70s. Yes, it is. What happened is that once we got to know Hanlon and we started recording, Neil had these songs ready for Ragged Glory. We started playing them 3 times a day, every day, for a month, 5 days a week. On the 3rd or 4th day, Neil told me to call out the songs. Towards the end, I was like, why am I doing this? Am I doing good? Doing bad? I don't know. I was lost. Neil said, go ahead, Poncho. Call them out. I said, man, why don't we just play some song that you played in your first band when you were starting out? Let's just play something different to be loose. He then started Farmer John. We played it one time. And it made the next time we played it was at the Catalyst. It wasn't quite as good, but we never played it. What's interesting is that you make Ragged Glory in early 1990. This is before Pearl Jam even exists and before most people have heard of Nirvana. It's still the era of Motley Crue and Poison. With Ragged Glory, you really made a grunge record before that was even a thing. Yeah, man. We did. You know what? Let me go on record as saying that I think This Way Down in the Rust Bucket is the best Crazy Horse record we ever I love it. I love this record. Neil plays great, unbelievably great. He's just a country home sounds like a country tune I never heard in my life. He just takes it to all kinds of different level. He nails Cortez. He nails Danger Burden over and over. He's just playing so good and the band played. I hate when people say, these were warm-up shows for the tour. We did. Do they really think they were warming us up for a giant tour? That's more for us. It's giving back to the community. We played in Santa Cruz. It's really close to Neil's. That's so most people could come to see us. Just standing in the parking lot, I wound up talking to about 100 people I know. We'd go on stage and we played T-Bone. We'd played that song at a birthday party for one of Peggy's friend and then we never played it too many other places. It was just fun. We played Homegrown, and at the end, people were throwing weed on the stage since it's a big weed growing. Laughs, we were having fun. It was all about the beginning of a new era. I just don't see it as a warm-up. It doesn't hit me like that. We played Cortez and it sounds so beautiful. When I hear Neil play it with other people, it just doesn't sound the same to me. Tell me a little more about why this Catalyst show happened. Well, Briggs, our leader, said it was time for us to go out. We had to go play in front of people before we do a tour. That was why it was just to be out there and be aware that there's going to be a crowd. At the same time, it was a setup because it was all our friends and it felt really good. We did Surfer Joe and Mow the Sleaze. Briggs used to give us crap. You guys never put your heart into it. You have to dig deeper. You sound like you're noodling. Laughs, he wanted it to be Mow the Sleaze and really dig into it. It came off more like a play. He thought maybe the audience would give us an edge. You played the Catalyst a lot. What's special about that room? Where Neil lived at the ranch, there was one other place to play and it was a bar. We played there, on November 12, 1990, but you could only get like 50 people. We just played on the dining room floor. There was no stage. There was no room for a PA. You might want to call it our home venue. Later on, after Princeton Landing, where Crazy Horse had a long residency in 1996, Neil didn't want to play bars anymore in the Warfield, in San Francisco, became our but playing at the Catalyst felt like playing at home. It felt like we were still. Do you remember them filming it? No. Not at all. When they told me they had a 6-camera video shoot, I was like, really? I had no idea. That's great. It means you were playing to the audience and not thinking about the camera. We always played to the audience. I'm watching the video now and Billy is having so much fun. I think I'm watching him more than anybody else. You guys are obviously in a very relaxed, comfortable state. Do you think you maybe tried some of that weed that was thrown onto the stage? Laughs, yes. I definitely think so. All our friends that were growers were there. You couldn't get into the building without smoke. I remember someone saying to me, don't smoke that shit that guy gave you. This one will give you clarity. Laughs, the tour started 2 months later. It was sort of a different vibe. You were in 20,000-seat arenas, the Gulf War had begun. A strange thing happened to me just before that tour started. That tour began in January, 1991. On Christmas Day, 1990, I had an emergency. My appendix was located somewhere up around my lungs. They couldn't find it. They had to take all my intestines out. I was really hurting. The first shows, man, I could barely walk up the stairs. We were playing big places and we had to deliver, but it took a minute for me to really get going. Neil has said in the past that the tour was too long. You did 53 straight concerts with that must have been taxing on all four of you. We used to make jokes about it. They always told us that we'd never do more than 3 or 4, but when you added it up, it was more like 11 shows in 12 days. How did they do the math on that? Laughs, the shows were still amazing. Well done, are incredible documents. It's surely one of the best eras for the group, even if it was, I thought it was pretty good too. Like I said, I was coming out of surgery. I went into maybe for that reason, I never recognized it as such a good record. But later on, as I talked to other people, they all told me that was it, that was the record. I started listening to it, and it was pretty good. In the aftermath of this tour, there was suddenly a huge musical shift and grunge. I'm not saying all those bands sounded like Crazy Horse or were even directly influenced by you, but did you feel that shift as it was happening? I felt that shift. I didn't think we had a lot to do with it. It always amused me when people said we were the godfathers of grunge. When we started out, when I first started playing with Neil, we were a folk rock. Laughs, it's all titles given to us by you, the writers. We didn't make any. When I hear all that stuff, I'm like, oh, they're putting a twist on this. We don't focus on trying to do any of that. We're just being ourselves. Neil has really ramped up his output of archival. He's doing one a month. What do you hope he releases in the near future? That's a good question. I want to hear the stuff with Steve and Charlie, the SNL stuff. And then I like to hear the live Alchemy record, from the 2012-14 Crazy Horse tour. To hear the Rust Bucket, and then that would really tie a lot together. You'd see a transformation of us. I'd like to hear the differences. I've definitely learned how to play guitar better and was more in tune to what my role was on the Alchemy tour. But I don't know if that was good or bad. I'd like to hear it. How about Toast, the 2001 record you guys cut and then shelved? I like that record. It seems like we spent a lot of time there. I don't know. It felt like there was something wrong. Neil had trouble writing. We spent a lot of days watching him sit on the floor with a yellow pen and then we'd play. I don't know. I'm sure there's good stuff there, but it was never, Briggs wasn't there. We just didn't have our compass. Something was different in those sessions. I can't put my finger on it. Oh, another thing that happened is that in the middle of the Toast sessions, we took off and went to South America, in January 2000. We had a great time. We rocked hard down there. I'd like to hear that. The Rio show was good and Argentina was phenomenal. The people there were humming the melody of Hurricane while we were soloing. I remember Neil throwing his head up the sky and then just blowing solo. They were singing loud enough for us to hear, hums like a hurricane, like a soccer chant through the whole. It was so uplifting. Anyway, we came back from that and everything we played on Toast had. That was another twist that happened. And the next thing I know, we were out of Toast and I was recording with bassist Duck Dunn and Booker on the Are You Passionate sessions, which is another highlight of my music. Right. It was the short-lived Poncho and the MGs. Yeah. One night, we were having dinner at the studio and I looked at Booker and I said, "Hey, man, I probably shouldn't do this, but I want to thank you for letting. That's really cool of you to let me be a part of the MGs." Booker looked over at Duck and was like, "Hey, did you tell him about the band dues?" Laughs. Speaking of the Alchemy tour, I was just watching a video that Neil posted from that where you guys played like a hurricane in the pissing rain for over. It's amazing. That song seems to make things rain. Laughs. We had some crazy shows we played in the rain, but that's a really good one. Once things like start happening, you have to get your antennae up and be on alert for any crazy thing that could start happening. Believe me, we had some crazy things happen. When all the power goes out, what do? Fans are curious to know why you left the band. What happened? Basically, I hate to say it because I'm too macho of a Spaniard, but I have arthritis in both. Right now, today, if I had a new carton of milk and I had to screw off that little top, I have to get out the pliers. It became painful for me to be on the road. When we were on that last tour, in 2014, I was rolling down the road with both of my hands in ice buckets and one foot in an ice bucket. That's really not that much fun. Then I got my finger slammed in the door, on the 2013 European tour. There were too many signs saying it was over for me. It wasn't for any other reason. I'd love to go on the road right now. I was messing things up on the last tour during the early songs. I just couldn't slide my fingers the way I used to when I played those lines. I was firing roadies because I thought they didn't have my guitar. Looking back on it after I left the band, I was like, why was my guitar in tune for the rest of the show? How come from the fifth song on, I had no problem and it was in tune? That's because by that point, I had enough adrenaline going to overcome. Do you still play guitar at home? Yeah. I have one right here. Strums a note, I play all the time, but I don't think anyone wants to hear me make mistakes. When I play with my friends on the couch, we all make mistakes and just laugh it off. Nobody is paying $100 a pop to watch me screw up. Since the end of the last tour, I have not left this island. I haven't even gone to Oahu. I'm very happy to stay home and be healthy. I think I have a great musical. In my mind, I accomplished more than I ever dreamed of when I started out as a little kid in Detroit playing. I'm happy with it. I'm very thankful to Billy, Neil, and Ralph. We all gave each other the opportunity to take music to a couple of different levels and make a lot of people happy. God bless all the fans that came out and enjoyed our music.